broom is attacking me.
Welcome back to Awakening Reformation, where Reformation awakens now. My name is Grant, and I'm joined by my beautiful wife, the weaker vessel.
Hello, everyone.
If you would like to find more about Awakening Reformation podcast, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. The Twitter handle is at Awaken Reform Pod. Facebook and Instagram are just Awakening Reformation. You can also email us at awakeningreformation@gmail.com.
Take a breath.
We appreciate all likes, comments, and shares, and any engagement with you guys. But this week we got 2 new reviews.
Yes, we did. So on Facebook, we got a review from Steve Salazar. So thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
And his review says, randomly found this podcast and glad I did. They speak biblical truth, and for some, that's not what they want to hear, but need to hear. Love the show.
Steve, you're awesome, and we're really happy you randomly found us too.
Yeah, for sure. Like and share us with your friends.
Yep, we'd appreciate it.
We also have a new review on iTunes from Michael Tom 53.
All right. Thanks, Michael Tom 53.
Says, Mikey, likey this podcast. Got turned on to this podcast by the 2 thieves. Grant knows his stuff, and his wife is a role model for women of the church to be women loving God with their minds, knowing doctrine and theology well.
Thank you, 2 thieves.
Thank you, 2 thieves, and thank you, Mikey. We glad you likey our podcast.
That's awesome. Thank you guys for the reviews. It's really cool. So the other thing we wanted to bring up, well, 2 things. One is, if you have episode topic suggestions, we love getting listener suggestions for difficult passages in the Bible or something that you're unsure about in the Bible. We'd love to tackle it, or theological topics or cultural topics, Christian culture topics or something like that, or something even off the wall. We got some ideas coming in the future that might be a little off the wall, but still fun to do.
Yeah, there have been some conversations that have been had about some conspiracy-esque type episodes.
We want to run the gamut here, cover everything. So
you can't stick us in a box.
No, there is hardly anything that's not on the table when it comes to Awakening Reformation.
That's the beauty of being a tiny podcast run out of a closet. Mm-hmm. There's nothing binding us to one said genre of podcasting.
No. Second thing we wanted to let everyone know
tonight, y'all, is
we got some Awakening Reformation podcast stickers.
We did.
They look good, babe.
Here's the deal, everyone. If you share your favorite Awakening Reformation episode on your Facebook page, your Instagram, or on Twitter, make sure you tag us in it so we know you did it.
Yep.
Also, we want you to tag 3 of your friends in the post. That's all you gotta do. Share your favorite episode.
If you want to tag more than that, that's fine. At least 3.
I mean, yeah, but at least 3. And make sure that you tag us so we know. If you do that, then send us an email. Send us a message on Facebook or you can message our Gmail. And just give us your physical address where you receive mail. And we will send you a sticker. So that's for the first 20 people who do that. We have 20 stickers to give away. So you automatically get a sticker if you share, tag, and give us your address.
So go share and
stickers
tag.
Are good to put on like your notebook or your journal or
laptop.
Yeah.
Car.
No, it's not a car.
It's not a car one?
It's not like a vinyl sticker. I think it would probably not do well.
So you can find, I've put stickers on tumblers before.
You could.
Be creative. I believe y'all are creative.
I mean, you do what you want with that sticker.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't vandalize.
I was going to say, put it on some stop signs in your neighborhood. No, don't do that. That's bad. It's illegal.
You must. This is a workspace system here.
Yeah.
You don't just get a sticker. You have to work for it.
Yeah, this is not a
We're not
reformed
God.
Giveaway. Yeah. We don't operate under grace. We don't just hand stuff out.
So with that, I have something that I want to discuss.
All right. What do you... is this off the cuff?
This is off the cuff.
I'm prepared.
On Instagram, I was just watching one of my favorite Instagram bloggers, and she's super funny, but she's talking about a certain word that she used that everyone was making fun of her for. She's from, I think, Northern Illinois originally, and now she lives in Raleigh. Mm-hmm. I am from about 3 hours away from where she's from originally, and I live about an hour away from where she lives now. So we're like pretty much from the same region.
Migrated.
And live in the same region now. So it's really funny because she'll say certain words, and I know what she's talking about, but none of her other followers do. So this leads me down a train of thought that goes something like this.
Okay.
What words do you use that make perfect sense from a Southern Californian's perspective that no one else knows if they're not from Southern California?
Oh, man. I haven't been in Southern California in 10 years.
Are there any?
So we often say something's cool if we like it. Okay? And probably until I left California, because everywhere else I went, people just looked at me crazy, but we would use the term sick to say something was cool. That song was sick, that whatever. And this is part of my skateboard.
That was like
California.
So 20 years ago.
Yeah, well,
you're such an old man.
Tell me how old I am. 20 years ago, I was 12. All right.
That's probably when you were skateboarding.
Sick. That's when I started skateboarding. Yeah, this is true. But it carried on even when I moved to Southern California. That was a common word.
I know, like in Northern California, they say hecka.
Yeah, so when
or an alternative to that, which I won't say.
Yeah. So I was like, are we? Oh yeah, no. Yeah, when I was in the band and we played a show, first time I went to Northern California, everybody was saying that. And if you were Christian, you said hecka, because you were cleaner in your speech.
That's right.
But that was not a Southern California thing.
No.
Definitely not. The other one that everyone used, you have to tell me if you use this in Wisconsin, but tight
I knew what those words meant, but I don't know that my crew used them.
Everybody said tight, like that's tight.
Those were more like trendy terms, though. Those aren't like
that's
regional
like the epitome
terms.
of California is trying to be trendy.
That's true. It's just whatever's trendy.
Yeah.
So like where I'm from, we just have words that have been used for like 100 years. That we all know what they mean.
Right.
But no one else does.
I don't think there's any cultural terms like that. I don't know. But, because it's like it's that surf West Coast culture too, with the dude and bro and radical and all that kind of stuff that if you don't hear that everywhere else. Like, you sound silly.
Well, you do kind of hear that now, though, is my point. Because now everyone wants to be like the culture and stuff.
Maybe.
Where I'm from, we use words like bubbler. Like, no one besides someone who's from Wisconsin knows what bubbler means. And when they think bubbler, they think like bubblegum or something. Everyone's
calling a water fountain a bubbler, or drinking fountain a bubbler. I was just like, what are you guys saying? Why do you have this silly term for a drinking fountain?
And I didn't know that. I mean, I knew what a drinking fountain was, but that was like its proper name, and no one calls it a drinking fountain. They call it a bubbler. So when I went to Bible college, and I was like, oh, hey, hang on, I'm going to go to the bubbler real quick. And someone started laughing at me. I didn't even know that was not what people called it. I just assumed that was a common term for it.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't think California is original in that way. I think you just have the surf kind of West Coast culture terms.
Yeah.
And the sick, dude, tight, radical, bro, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I don't think California was original in a lot of those kind of
not where you were from,
cultural terms, But when I went to Wisconsin, you guys have all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and I don't really know what they are because I just say them. That's not what people say.
Yeah.
No, people say yet at the end of everything.
That's true. Instead of saying still.
Right.
So like, are you still drinking that? They would say, are you drinking that yet?
Yet always comes at the end of the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it was just a funny conversation that girl was having with her followers on Instagram, and it made me think of bubbler and hecka and all those like funny regional sayings. So if you guys have any funny regional sayings that are appropriate, comment. Sure.
Yeah, comment, especially if it's something that people usually look at you funny for or something like that.
Here's what she was talking about. She was talking about the term huck it.
Huck it, right?
Huck it. But you can't say it like huck, like huck and fin, like huck fin.
Right.
You say it like huck it.
Which means like to throw vigorously.
Yeah. And I grew up saying that too.
Yeah, I think I knew that term growing up too.
Then there was a whole like thing about, is huck a word?
Right.
Like, are you gonna huck it out the window? And then someone said, no, it's not huck it, it's chuck it.
Which I grew up with chuck it.
Right. And I did say that too. Like we said chuck it too. Like chuck it out the window or chuck it whatever. Like whatever
chuck
it was.
Chuck it over there.
Chuck it over the fence.
Mm-hmm.
But then moving to the South, we both noticed people, instead of saying chuck it, they would say chunk it.
So is that a Southern thing?
Is it Southern when people say chunk it?
Or are you from somewhere that is not the South and you do say chunk?
Yeah.
Or do you say chunk?
Because it's like, I had never heard chunk it before.
No, I never did. I never did until I joined the Army and someone was no, it's chunk.
When people say chunk it makes me think of like chucking your guts.
Well, I think of I don't think of that.
Like you're gonna blow chunks, you know?
Oh, yeah, that's really gross. I think of...
Maybe that's where I don't know.
Maybe. I think of chunks of, brownies or something, chunks
that's much more pleasant.
And a dessert, chunks of something in an ice cream. That's what I think.
So is it huck it?
Chuck it.
Chuck it. Or chunk it?
What do you guys got? I'm excited to see what people got.
Hopefully we get some responses.
Yeah. I want to hear the stories of the chunk people. That's probably most intriguing to me.
All right.
I think California is a conglomerate. That's why. I think it's kind of like a melting pot.
It's a pretty good mixture.
You know? Mm-hmm. So that's probably why.
It's very true.
It's not unique to California.
Well, and Wisconsin is so... I mean, for the most part, people are born there, stay there, and it's generational, so...
Not many people immigrate there.
It would make sense that there's a large concentration of the same family using the same etymology and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Which gets us into our topic because, speaking of families living together...
And killing each other.
I didn't say killing. But we're going to talk about Cain and Abel. And they lived with their parents
and we're gonna
in the same region. See how I brought it around?
Such a good segue. My gosh.
You can't pay for something that good.
We're going to... Yeah, you get a raise now.
I get to have 3 ice cubes in my water.
We're gonna double your salary now.
Yay.
So Cain and Abel might seem like a weird thing to talk about, but we'll get into it. But you came across a verse, and it kind of spawned you into this study of Cain and Abel. And first thing we said was, not many people talk about the story of Cain and Abel.
Yeah, it's not a super popular...
everyone knows the story.
Conversation.
Seems like everyone knows the story.
Yeah.
But to actually dive into it, which the verse that I was talking about is what propelled us into the study, but not many people dive into that, to Genesis 4.
Do you think that, to some extent, our dispensational Christian culture kind of just disregards it because it doesn't really pertain to us from their perspective?
I wouldn't say no, because there's probably some aspect to that. I think, which I want to dig into a little deeper too, is I think most Christians in our day don't think in a biblical theology mindset. And so when we read the story, we don't pick up on anything in it because we're not thinking biblical. We're not thinking all of Scripture when we read it. So we just read the story. Wow, it's so bad. He murdered his brother. And then we move on. You know, don't do that. Don't murder
like Cain.
Don't be like Cain. Don't get cursed like Cain. So I think that's why maybe we ignore it.
We don't think of it through redemptive lenses.
Exactly. So
I mean, we would say then that in order to glean everything you could glean from the story and to perceive what's being communicated there correctly, you would have to have some type of framework of historical redemption. Yeah, I think so. I think when you're a disciple of Christ or a Christian in general, we should not look at any part of Scripture myopically. We should not zoom in and only see certain parts as the good parts, and that's what we live off of. It's all Scripture is God-breathed and profitable, so we need to look at it all. Now, I think the perspective just needs to be flipped. When you read the Bible as its whole story of God bringing His Messiah, the Christ, to atone for sin and to redeem a people for Himself. It's the whole story of the Bible. When you look at it that way, with that foundation, then you can look at the individual verses and stories and understand them. It needs to be flipped. We don't look at these verse here, verse there, verse here, and then say, well, this is what the whole Bible is about. We need to look at that overarching meta-narrative first, and then go down to the Cain and Abel story. Understand what God's purpose